Hi, my name is K.Thomas, W1DED. The California QSO Party, the 58th running of the California QSO Party, starts at 1600 Zulu on October 7th, 2023. Today I have with me the chairman of the CQP, Dean Wood, N6DE. I was first introduced to Dean through a video presentation that he did for the Northern California Contest Club, in which he reviewed the 2022 results and analyzed them. And it was very, very helpful. And since I plan on operating in the CQP coming up, I thought it might be a good idea to have Dean join us today for his perspective. Dean, thank you for joining us.
Kevin, it is great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, let's begin with your ham radio credentials. I'm always interested in people's ham radio story. What brought you into this hobby and gave you the background to be the chairman of the California QSO Party?
I got my ham license in high school. I took an electronics class in high school, and one of the things we did there was we studied to take our novice exam, and so I did that and upgraded technician in high school. Then in college, I joined the Cal Poly Amateur Radio Club, and from there I've been active on HF since, and have had some great friends all the way back to high school and college who are terrific friends today.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed from your QRZ page is that first of all, you have a lot of contesting experience, which I'm sure sets you up well to be the chairman of the CQP. But it was also interesting that you don't operate from your home QTH very much. You've been a guest op at literally 2 or 3 dozen stations, which is very impressive that they want you back. But also you have done a lot of portable operations, which is really unusual, and I'm really intrigued to learn more about that. But tell me about that. Why not from your home QTH and instead at other locations?
I live in Silicon Valley, and so it is difficult to get permission to install a tower. It's difficult to have a lot that's large enough that you can install a permanent antenna or semi-permanent antenna. So I was fortunate enough to join the Northern California Contest Club, where there were a lot of members who have existing stations and were kind enough to invite me over to their stations. So having lived in an apartment when I moved up into the Bay Area, I had an R7000 on the apartment roof, and that was it. And then I moved into a house later with a really small lot, and then moved where I am today in San Jose. And putting up a tower just is not in the cards in the Bay Area. So the way I maintain active on the air is either portable operating, either operating from other stations, or operating remotely online.
Well, and unfortunately, I think that's becoming a story for many ham radio operators. It's more and more difficult to put a tower or an antenna up in their backyard. I'm experiencing that now myself. So remote or borrowing somebody else's station is more of the choice looking forward. But I also have to add that when I look at your portable operations, this isn't you going to a field putting up a dipole. You have a very specific and extensive way of planning and executing these portable operations, which we might get into later on. But if you would, just tell me a little bit about that. What's behind you coming up with these plans where you're actually taking band filters and triplexers, and in one case I saw you using a literal 100-foot portable tower?
That particular example was recent from last year, where I joined a group of guys in Tulare County in California at US Tower, where they hosted us with, they were kind enough to loan us some crank-up towers on tower trailers that extended 107 feet. So that really opened up the canvas. Gee, what could we do with that? How much fun could we have that we could never have at home in the Bay Area? So that was exciting, just to go down that and plan out what we could do. In the past, it hasn't been that quite extensive, but I have been involved in multi-ops, portable out in U.S. forest land. I've been involved in single ops, most of the time with a tower trailer that, again, I have been able to borrow from a local club, or a friend happen to have a tower trailer that we operated somewhere. So that's the background. I would say that this year I'm probably going to mix it up. This year I'm going to go to a fixed station in one county, and then I'm going to go on an expedition with a low dipole on CW and see how that goes on Sunday.
Well, I definitely want to hear more about that. But before we do, tell us about the California QSO party. I mean, if people are watching this, they probably know what a QSO party is, but give us the background of the California QSO party and what makes it different than other QSO parties.
California QSO party is an HF contest. It's 10 meters through 160 meters. It's on CW and phone, and it's for 30 hours, the first full weekend in October. It has been going since 1966, and the sponsor, the Northern California Contest Club, has sponsored it since 1975, going on 50 years here pretty soon. So it's been around quite a while and have had a lot of terrific chairs organizing and making this contest a success to where it is today, where I happen to pick it up. Some big names who started early on organizing this contest, starting from K1KI to W60AT, WA6VEF, who's now VA7RR, 86E, a lot of recognizable calls that that you have heard on the air many times, or maybe even have heard about at WRTC several times.
Yeah, I certainly noticed those call signs, in particular K1KI. Tom is a well-known ham radio operator here in New England, and it was fascinating for me to be reading up on the background of the California QSO party and see his name as listed as one of the co-founders. I think when he was in college, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was early on. Now, I think I didn't answer your question. What makes it a little different than some of the other QSO parties? Usually, the draw of QSO parties, not only U.S. but in Canada, is the presence of mobile stations that traverse across the state in many counties. Counties in a lot of states tend to be fairly close together. So going mobile, operating 30 minutes, operating an hour, going to the next county, continuing that rate to activate a bunch of counties is common in most QSO parties. It doesn't happen to be that way in California. Our thing in California is we have a lot of fixed stations on the air throughout the state that make up the bulk of our participants. Then how we get stations on the air in rare counties is through expeditions instead of mobiles. We have an incredible state with a lot of varying terrain, from deserts to beaches to tall mountains. And there's a lot of opportunity to be stuck in a valley, mobile, driving on a highway or a road where you can drive for an hour, hours, and no one will hear you. But there's also the opportunity to set up in strategic locations in California where the terrain will benefit you highly. And that's what a lot of stations do as expeditions set up at a hilltop, set up at a place with downsloping terrain toward the east, take advantage of quiet noise floor instead of the noise floor that they may hear in their urban environment where they live, and take advantage of great terrain to the east that you don't have to have a huge antenna and a huge station to be heard. So I think that's really how we are able to be successful. We do also have a couple of key mobile stations, K6AQL mobile, as probably most of the people watching this have worked K6AQL many times over the last years. He's a staple on CW as a mobile station. And then we have a few on phone. every year. But that's what makes us our participant base a little different than the normal QSO party.
Dean, do you have an idea of how many people will have expedition operations this year in 2023?
I estimate it's going to be around 50 expeditions. Some are going to be from county lines and some not. Some are going to be for both days and some will just be for one day. But usually it's right around 40, 50 expedition stations. For the logs that we get from mobiles, it's usually around the same, about 40 or 50 logs from the different counties. And then the rest of the participant base in California's fixed stations from last year, for example, it was over 300 that just submitted logs. There were many more that were more casual and did submit logs.
One of the things I noticed online was that obviously you spend a lot of time encouraging people to operate in the California QSO party, but I also noticed a listing of who intended to operate from various counties. It was very helpful.
It is, and it's really a key way that we try to activate all the 58 counties. The viewer might think that California is a very highly populated state, which it is, and might think it should be pretty easy to get all the counties on the air. You have a lot of population. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. In fact, it's pretty hard to get all the 58 counties active on the air in a given weekend. Some of the counties are quite small. Some of the counties have low population, less than 10,000 people who live there. Some of the counties are really only activated by expedition every year. They're not easy to get to. It takes many hours to drive there. And a mobile just cannot really adequately cover some of the counties. So it is actually quite a lot more difficult than you would think to get all 58 California counties active.
So do you think this year you'll have all 58 active?
We will, yeah. It's that tracker page that you mentioned now shows that we expect to have activity in all 58 counties on both CW and phone. Some of those counties will be covered just one day, and then most of the counties will be covered both days. So for those stations who are looking for a county sweep, it would really benefit you to take a look at that spreadsheet. And first of all, I'm going to be posting the mobile plans from K6AQL as I do the mobile route, where most other QSO parties do as well. You follow the route, you work them in rare counties and so on. But expeditions are really key for stations to try to also work, and they may not be there all weekend. So take a look at that spreadsheet in counties where I've ranked that might be relatively rare, and make sure you're looking out for that station, for that call sign. It's possible that, for example, if you're going assisted using packet, watch out for that call sign to come out on CW or phone, and don't ignore them until it becomes too late.
You know, I'm so tempted to get into the analysis already. I love how you broke down all the statistics during your presentation to the Northern California Contest Club. But before we do that, you had started that presentation off with a discussion about why contest and why people should contest. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I really loved your answer.
I think where I was approaching it from is an angle about impact. It is pretty easy to wonder what all of our impact really is by turning on the radio and making contact anywhere, contest or non-contest. Would anyone notice? Would anyone care if you hadn't been on the air at all? Isn't it rewarding to feel that you have made some kind of difference in something, that you've made some kind of impact in an event or otherwise? And the California QSO party is just one example of many that just really one station can make a sizable impact in the whole contest, felt by all the participants and appreciated by the organizers. And that's really that can be done in multiple ways. It can be done by a fixed station owner opening up their station to a new contester in a local club who may not have participated in a contest before. that's one huge way to make an impact. Other ways are join up with a friend, make a friend, go somewhere to a site for a day, go on an expedition. Another way is maybe operate from a rear county and enable sweeps to happen all across the world by just your activation. So I think that it's easy to overlook the impact that anyone could have in an event, and I wanted to really stress that your viewers shouldn't feel that way. Uh, Everyone watching, everyone participating can really make their impact felt big time in the California QSO party, as an example, depending on how they decide to operate.
Dean, what do you say to the anti-contest crowd? I mean, obviously you and I are into contesting. I really enjoy it. But what would you say to the anti-contest crowd that doesn't love the fact that people like ourselves seem to take over the bands on the weekends?
I don't think too much about the anti-contest crowd. I don't stay up at night thinking about it. I know that contesters have a lot of value on the air, a lot of value with the skills that they can share, a lot of value that the skills that they learn. And so I don't really think much about it. I just think that there are a lot of different ways that people can enjoy amateur radio. Contest is one of them. I don't feel like everybody has to like them. There are a whole bunch of different ways to have to contribute and have a great experience in amateur radio. So I think there are just multiple venues. Choose your venue, whether it's public service or moon bounce or DXing or contesting or rag chewing. It doesn't bother me.
That's a great answer, Dean. Thank you. So let's get back to some stats because I'm so interested in all these. We left off talking about county multipliers and a clean sweep. How many people actually attain a clean sweep, both in California and out of California? Do you have an idea of what that is?
We do. We have some stats on the webpage that shows this over the past several years. I think last year there were something like, if I'm trying to remember, something around 20 some odd folks who got a sweep from outside California, if I remember right. Maybe it was even a little different than that. Not as many as you would think, but there were a lot of stations that got very close to a sweep, like well over 100, I would say we're in the 50s. So again, we're really just one or two major operations from breaking through that barrier and making a lot more sweeps attainable. From inside California, it tends to be a little bit more. This year might be a bit different, but difficulties within California typically have been contacting VY1, VE8, as well as North Dakota. Those are usually our tough ones. Sometimes some others in Canada are tough on certain years.
Talk to me about the different classes of operation. We talked about expeditions and mobile. Obviously, there's single operator, multis. Is there any particular tendency other than expeditions that happens differently in the California QSO party?
So our classes are single op assisted, meaning you're using packet assistance, reverse beacon network, etc. Multi-single, multi-operator, single transmitter. New to this year, multi-operator, two transmitter, and existing from the past, multi-operator, multi-transmitter. Within all of those 5 things I just listed, there's 3 different power classes, high power, low power, and QRP. You'll notice that we don't have separate categories as such for mode-specific categories like CW and phone to simplify things, to simplify the whole award structure, and really encourage people to be on both modes. Is the operation any different than other contests? I would say I'm not sure. I know that the split between single op and single op assisted, there are more people who enter as single operator unassisted than single op assisted. Um, and most all of the participants were single ops. A small handful were really multi-ops overall. And so I would say, I don't know how that compares with other contests, but I think it's fairly similar.
One of the things I picked up in your presentation to the Northern California Contest Club was this breakdown about CW operators versus phone, and I thought that result was very interesting. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Usually the split within CW operators and phone operators and mixed mode in the California QSO party happens to be about a third of each. About a third of the participants elect to make QSOs on both modes. Some elect to make their QSOs only on CW and some only on phone. That statistic has been about roughly a third over the past recent years. Last year, the CW only percentage went up. And the phone only percentage went down, but not by a lot. Really, it was, I think the phone only was 23%, CW only was not quite 40, and then mixed mode was in the mid 30s, if I recall correctly. So it's a really good mix, I would say. And because of the scoring differences between CW QSOs and phone QSOs, there is an advantage to operating on CW. You get 3 points for every CW contact and 2 points for every phone contact. The idea a long time ago was that you might be able to make phone contacts more quickly, CW contacts may be more rare, balance it out. It's the CW activity I've noticed has really been flourishing, and I'm not sure if that's an effect of CW Ops and the Long Island DX Club really bringing in some more CW interest, or maybe people just preferring CW and wanting to get away from the noise on phone. I'm not sure what that is, but I think that I would expect the statistics this year to not get any worse than that, because all the high bands are going to be open. 10 meters, 15 meters will be open, and there's a lot of space for some nice phone activity. So usually in the years of low activity, it's harder to find a spot on phone.
So, Dean, for those people that are playing to win, which mode would you suggest, or would you suggest the mixed mode?
Yeah, if somebody was playing to win, they should definitely go mixed mode, both inside California as well as outside California. And the reason is that you are both sides are going to end up running out of stations to work if they don't. So that is definitely the way to go if you're looking to win. From outside California, the strategy for the Sirius station is going to be, you need to try to work as many stations, search and pounce as you can on CW. And you want to try to work a good amount of search and pounce on phone, but you really need to spend some time from outside California calling CQ on phone. That is going to be a lot more productive in boosting the QSO count than calling CQ on CW.
I know you mentioned this earlier, but take me back to how many participants you have that submit logs outside of California, and has that grown over the past few years?
Let's see. I think the breakdown the last year, we had a little bit over 1,200 logs the last couple of years. The breakdown was about, I would say, what was it? Not quite 800 outside of California, and like 430 inside California. What does that break down to? Not quite a third and 2/3. So is it any different than in the past? I haven't done that analysis, but I think to me this is a pretty healthy split. You have 400 stations inside California, 400 logs that that have submitted and that are active. There are many others active that didn't submit a log. And then you have a wide group outside California that is interested in the contest, interested enough to participate and submit their logs. And I think that's because there's just so much activity inside California that makes it interesting, that makes it fun. As well as, I think in the recent years, the state QSO Party Challenge has really helped across the board in all QSO parties to bring attention to and activity to a lot of QSO parties as well. So, so I think we have a pretty healthy balance. I'm not sure if it's changed dramatically in the last few years. I would guess it hasn't.
Dean, what have you heard from specific individuals about their efforts for this year? Have you heard any big plans from California?
I would say it's pretty much the same groups of activities that it has been in the past. This is one thing that also really is an important thing that makes the California QSO Party strong. And that is you have a group of really strong contesters with a lot of contesting experience participating. That is not a given in most QSO parties. In fact, I think if you were to look at a lot of QSO parties, you would wonder, where are some of the big stations that I remember working in other contests? California, we have been able to attract the attention from the really the top talent inside California and be active. So I think that's going to continue. Expeditions, there are expedition plans all over the place, just like they have been in the past, from a variety of places, from forest land, from state park land, from Airbnbs. That's one big difference that has happened the last number of years to make expeditions more reachable by participants, as well as we're really encouraging folks to think about, if you can't stay for 2 days, the whole weekend, think about a one-day expedition. And we have an award that we give for multi-ops as well as single ops for going out for a day. So we have a combination of, I would say, of all of that, which we've had in the past.
So Dean, I'm really trying to understand why you've had so much success. When I say you, the California QSO Party, why you've had so much success having the experienced contesters show up for this event, how you've encouraged and supported people to do these very extensive expeditions. How has that come about?
I think really it's a multi-pronged answer. I think the longevity of the contest and having had the contest built up and up by a lot of capable organizers and participants has helped a lot. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over many years. So I'm just really trying to keep that machine going, keep that wheel going as much as I can. I think the other thing that really helps a lot, Kevin, is for California stations, CQP is the one weekend where we get our 15 minutes of fame. We are the standard California molt in all the other contests. We're Zone 3 in CQ Worldwide. There's really no reason for people to come looking for California that much in most other contests. Certainly not for multipliers, and maybe not even for Qs. You might want to be pointed somewhere else or be somewhere else more productive. This is the one weekend where everybody's looking for us, which is not a common thing for us to feel in California. So I think that it really helps attract a lot of activity, not just from the experienced contesters, but the folks who make this their one-year operating event, the folks who decide to come in. And I know we have some folks who have told us that this is going to be their first HF contest. So I think that whole feeling and that whole participant base from outside California looking for us in particular makes us interested in participating.
Dean, that's great perspective. As someone who's on the East Coast, I wouldn't have understood that, but it makes total sense. This has been really helpful to me, and I'm looking forward to operating the contest on October 7th. Do you have anything else to add before we close up for people that are going to participate?
I think other than what I mentioned about impact, one of the things I wanted to talk about was some of the things that we do a little differently, that we've been able to have a bit of freedom to do differently in the California QSO party compared with other contests out there. And some of it has been around teaching and sharing info. We have a strategy page on our webpage where I've came up with an operating guide, and we're trying to take the goal that we would like to make this a learning experience, a teaching experience for everybody. This is not just an event for the most experienced contesters, and a lot of things are not completely obvious to everyone. So that's one thing that I see that we have made an attempt to do, not just with all the stuff on the strategy page, but including videos and audio of people operating. To get a sense of, okay, this is how you make a QSO. This is how you call CQ. In this contest, maybe I'll give it a try. Maybe I'll go and call CQ. We've done some things with the club competition that we're trying to encourage not just the biggest clubs to participate, but the general purpose clubs through bonus points, through encouraging activity from new contesters, YLs, youth, mobiles. We are trying to make the results interesting, more interesting than they might be in written form, with a video that we've tried to capture the excitement and really document the stories of these stations who are going out into the field and setting up exciting stuff. I think there's an opportunity for the contest community to tell these stories better than we are in the contest write-ups. And that's just one way I've attempted to try to do it. I'm sure there are many different ways that other people will explore in the future. So I think with all of that, we're trying some different things, hoping that it catches on in some other contests and inspires other people to participate who may not ordinarily have done. One thing I want to mention, Kevin, is it's not just me in the California QSO party as the chair. I'm the guy who sends emails, the publicity, but there is a really important team behind the scenes that everybody should really know that makes this contest run. Tom, N6DE, is the guy behind the scenes who from the log acceptance page all the way up to the results, plays a huge part in scoring, log checking. John, K6MM, plays a huge part in our team for the web page. And we have N6DE as the sponsor, which, by the way, is not, it's not common to have a contest club, or I say it's not every QSO party has a contest club as its sponsor. So that's a big win. We have a sponsor, WK6I, who owns Twisted Oak Winery, that allows us to give out exciting gifts. And we have a volunteer, Fred, K6DGW, who manages the Work All California Counties Award. So it isn't just the chairman doing all this stuff. We have a really important team behind the scenes that makes this machine run every year.
Well, thanks for going through that list. It's certainly an impressive list and explains how you've been so successful. But I also want to go back and say how much I like the idea that you're taking the time to teach people how to be contesters or better contesters. I don't see that a lot. I mean, there's obviously the individuals that are willing to help. But it's like the presentation that I saw you do for the Northern California Contest Club. That gave someone like myself a lot of insight on how to be better. And if we want to encourage more people into the hobby in general or into this niche specifically, we need to be willing to teach them. And also this idea of trying to convey the enthusiasm that we have for it, what happens in the moment. And I think you're right. I think it's been hard for people to capture that. Sometimes the live streams don't quite do it. The summaries on 3830 scores don't quite do it. So I think if we can figure that out, because it is very exciting when you're in that moment, particularly when you're running a frequency or you get that multiplier you've been looking for. And again, figuring out how to tell that story and get people caught up in that excitement, I think will make a huge difference for contesting specifically, but ham radio in general. Dean, I really appreciate you taking the time this morning. I know you're up early. This was a 7 a.m. call for you. I appreciate you changing your schedule to be here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin. It was a pleasure.